All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Kristen Butler back here with me on the show for the first time since 2015, literally right when we launched the podcast, episode 4. And Kristen is an author and founder of the Power of Positivity community, which has over 50 million followers globally. And just very excited to have you back here. It feels like a full circle moment. Welcome back to the show, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I can't believe 2015. There's been so much growth and change since then. It's amazing.
It's like, isn't it interesting how our life is like, it's like chapters, you look back. I mean, something came up of my first girlfriend's mother died a few days ago. And it's like, it came up in my feed or whatever. And it's like, oh, wow. That the chapter where she was this big impact in my life. Could I see my 15-year-old girlfriend, or not? And how, and it's just like, and it's like another person. It's like that happened to someone else almost. It was so long ago. And
Mm,
it's really just interesting how these, it truly is. Our lives are like a story.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
absolutely. And if we're open to it, we can keep changing the page and
Yep.
creating new chapters, or we can just keep rereading the
Mm,
same one.
exactly. Every moment is another chance to turn it all around.
hmm
And well, what I would like to do is start off with my cliche opener. I doubt I had this back then, but you're in luck. You get my cliche developments over the years. And my cliche opener is this: you're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Mm. I transform my life through a positive lifestyle. And I feel like my life purpose and my mission every day is to uplift the planet through my work, through one on one connections, whether that's even just a smiling at a stranger as I'm walking past.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I truly feel like my story and the challenges I went through helped me to be able to help others and hopefully create that positive ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, you definitely done that. I always say, I call it the good kind of selfish. Because, I heard at one time how in our life review, this is stuck with me, or, and who knows such things, but it was like a near death experience or something. And they said, in my life review, I got to see everyone I impacted and feel what they feel and how I benefited them, including those that I maybe didn't have such a positive impact. But what she was stressing in this particular instance was the positive impact. And not only did I get to feel the positive impact and ripple that they felt, but the ripple that the people that they spread it with felt.
Wow.
So, and it was just like, I always, ever since hearing that, I just think to myself, I'm just in it for the afterlife party and celebration, and like, okay, I want to feel it all come back, and
Yeah. Oh
that's,
my
I think
gosh.
that's a beautiful, beautiful, good kind of selfish, as I jokingly say.
Yeah, I love that. You know, day to day, I don't necessarily think about the amount of people that I'm helping because it can be overwhelming at times when you're like, wow, that's a huge ripple effect in a good way, but then it's like to have that much impact. But every time someone like leaves a review or sends a message, even just to say like, hey, you changed my life, or I was in like a moment of grief and I thought that I couldn't keep going, and then I picked up your book, or I read a meme that you posted, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, it's like, wow, and it's so amazing how easily you can uplift people just with moments of kindness or a few uplifting words, or even just listening to what someone is going through. It
Yeah.
can make such an impact when it's at even just a specific time.
Yeah.
We can make a positive difference in so many ways. um, it's amazing.
It really is. And it's like, I think it's important to consider, like, for everyone out there listening too, it's very easy to fall into, well, how great for Brandon having a platform to, or Kristen for, having all these followers that they can reach. Like, I'm stuck in my job or whatever the story is. And it's like, you don't know the impact that I often reference something I heard from when I had Charles Eisenstein, who I had on the show a while back. He said, like, who is more important, Gandhi or Gandhi's grandmother who raised him? Like, and impacted who he became. So you don't know who you're going to impact at the coffee shop, with that
Mm,
kind word or that moment, and what the ripple is from there. So, I think it's really important. We live in such a day and age of numbers, right? How many followers do you have? How many listens do you have? How many, what's your, and really that metric, I mean, one person could theoretically have an impact that reaches more than 50 million people, right? I mean, you
yeah.
just don't know. And
Yeah.
so the important thing is stepping into, I would say, stepping into, eh, that's my intention, is I want to have some positive impact in others' lives, you know, each day in some
Yeah.
way. And
And the truth is you and I have been so consistent, but there's a backstory to both of us of why we do what we do, and for me, sure, I impact a lot of people, but there was a point when I was in bed for 2 weeks and I couldn't even get out. In fact, I
mm,
thought, maybe this is it for me. Maybe I've failed too much. Maybe I shouldn't keep going. Maybe I'm not even good enough to take another breath. We've all been at these places where, we're struggling to even get through another day.
yeah,
And that's where I was over a decade and a half ago. And what helped me, laying in bed and ruminating in negative thoughts and self defeat, but then realizing, hey, Kristen, you have a bed to sleep on. There are
yeah,
people who care. Maybe it's not very many at the
yeah,
time, but at least there are people who do care. At least you're protected from, the rain, or at least there's food
yeah,
that you can eat at this moment. And there's always
right,
something that we can kind of gravitate towards to uplift us in that moment. And
for
it's
sure.
really, some people like to say that's toxic positivity, but that saved me thinking in that way in that moment when I
Mm-hmm.
was really willing to give up on everything that I had
Mm,
just ruined my life so much. I mean, the
mm,
reality was, yes, I did fail a lot, but I wasn't worthless and I wasn't,
yeah.
I certainly shouldn't have given up. But it's these little things that can make such a big difference. And gratitude is one of those really powerful moments. But my point of this is just that the people who might have these platforms or have been podcasting for years and sharing their voice and their message, there's reasons behind that. They've been where you are. If you feel stuck or lonely or sad, or you're going through a really big challenge right now, they've been there, and that's why they're so passionate about sharing it, because they know you can get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that you brought up the toxic positivity thing. As two people who have, if I had a nickel for every time said, oh my gosh, I was down and out, and, search the word positive on, a podcast app, and you came up and it's changed my life. And, those are the things I'm most proud of. And that word, that key word that we both have, as part of our brand. Then of course, you get the backlash of, like you said, toxic positivity. And I certainly understand some of the ideas and rationale around that. And then, just like everything we do in society, that can be taken way too far as well. Like, and I think what you said, there's nothing toxic at all, in my opinion, about reaching for the thing that feels the best, finding the thing to appreciate. What you appreciate appreciates, right? In
Oh,
finding
I love that.
gratitude, finding gratitude for what is you do have, as opposed to focusing on what you don't have, is it's it's a superpower. It really is. It is the only way out, actually. To focus on what you want to see, appreciate in your world. And it doesn't mean, like, never acknowledge something negative, or that something, and not feel your feelings. That's toxic. I understand that. But as soon as you've been able to, you know, recoup it all from the experience, I think it's then, okay, I got it. I see it. I see the problem. I felt it. Now, where can I focus my, focus my attention, and and grow and foster, right? And that's, I think, the real difference. It's like acknowledging that I think the only thing toxic is when you say, "Oh, everything should be positive, and you're never going to feel anything else." That's not the case. It's like, okay, how long do you stay there, and what do you do to just sort of navigate out when you have your wits back around you? It's like Mike Tyson said, "Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face," and a lot of times life punches us in the face, and then it takes you a minute to like get your bearings, and it's like, okay, now that I've got my bearings, which direction do I face? And I think that's the subtle difference for me.
Yeah, and it's not like you're like, "Ooh, that didn't hurt," It's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, that hurt, but like why did that happen?" "Oh,
Yep.
okay, well, I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen again or at least try my best." Yeah, it's like when you start thinking in that more positive direction, doors will open that were never there, that you never even had the ability to see.
Yeah.
And even science backs this up and says like your brain, once it thinks of that, it's going to find it in its environment. So you have to give yourself that opportunity to look for the positive, or it could be
Yep.
right in front of you and you're not even going to see it because your
Yep.
brain's not looking for it.
Yeah.
It's funny. My daughter had this parade that she had to go in and she had to wear this bright green dress. And so, we don't see this neon green in our environment all the time at the store. We're never looking for it.
Yeah.
But as soon as we had to look for it, we're in the store like green, green, green. We're like, oh
Yeah.
wow, it's everywhere. But we were
Yep.
never looking for it, so we didn't see it. And it's
Yeah.
the same with our thoughts or with opportunities. When we're not looking for them, we're never gonna see them, we're never gonna get them. And then we're gonna always feel like a victim and that
Yep.
our life is full of negativity. Cause I certainly felt like that. I felt like a victim. And in those moments of rock bottom, it was like as soon as I started to claim the opportunities and let go of the negative, it got better and better. And it just kind of rippled in that direction. And of course, my life still has negativity and problems because I'm human and this is the reality that we live in. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be challenges, but it definitely makes the journey a lot better than when I was constantly negative and feeling like a victim.
Yeah. Yeah. It's two steps forward, one step back in our development. I think a lot of times, and
Yeah.
people then get caught up on like, I love these memes. It's like, here's, people have their spiritual awakening and what they expect, and it's like unicorns and rainbows, and what it actually is, and it's like shows someone like crying and like a wreck, and so part of it is like these things, creating the space for these things to come up and be worked through, and the I think the real key is living there as a short amount of time as you can.
Hmm.
And these are tools that help you to find your way out, really.
Yeah.
And I know, I remember from our first podcast, even, you've had quite the journey, like, um going from, you know wondering if you should still be here to, influencing millions of people. So maybe you could share, because most of the listeners now weren't around in 2015, but for those of you who were, yeah, here, thanks for sticking with us. But maybe you can share a little bit about your journey to give some context as well.
Yes. So, you know, I was one of those people that just always thought I was strong and resilient. I could get through anything. And, a decade and a half ago or 20-ish years ago,
Hmm.
in college and um, high school and college, I always wanted to change my circumstance because I was born in a family where my mom was on welfare and so I saw the struggle firsthand and I was like, I don't want this for myself. How do I
Yeah.
get out of this circumstance? And
Yeah.
so I thought, pushing through, stuffing my feelings down, just being strong, being resilient would get me through. And working hard. And that does work temporarily, but you can't avoid pain and trauma and the things that you need to work through. And you can't just kind of push everything down and ignore it because it's going to
Yeah.
keep coming up. And so I developed workaholic tendencies. I was really good at what I did, but that's all I focused on. And so I forgot about myself. I wasn't working out. I wasn't really eating as healthy as I should have. I wasn't prioritizing relationships or a healthy lifestyle that I do now. And I just kept experiencing cycles of burnout, but I wouldn't acknowledge them. It was like, I'm going to be fine, and so I wasn't sleeping like I should, and all the things that kind of happen when you start overworking and burning yourself out, right? You're very low on energy, but you just keep going. And so it got to a point where I just hit rock bottom. The doctors, the moment that really did it for me was when the doctor said, like, hey, you're never going to have children.
Mm,
And as a young woman, you're like, you kind of feel equipped, like this is what you're supposed to do, right? Like this is
mhm,
why you're you have these innate feelings. And I thought, wow, and then at the same time, I also lost a very successful eBay business that I had. And
mm,
I was struggling with panic attacks, severe anxiety, depression. And so here I am, like every area of my life's falling apart. And sure, I was in my early 20s, but it was like, to me, it felt like I had ruined myself. Like I didn't see a way out. It was like, wow, I put everything into this and it failed. And yeah, I just didn't even want to get out of bed. It was like that rock bottom, that
wow.
cycle of burnout hit the hardest. And you lay there and you kind of ruminate, like, how did this happen? What did I do? What do I do to get out? And over time, really what I can say is that it was gratitude that helped me pull me out, to get me
Mm,
out of bed, to help me brush my teeth again.
mm,
I did also start talking to a therapist because, yeah, my disturbing thoughts were unhealthy.
mhm.
And, um, a well meaning family member kind of reported it, and I had to start seeing a therapist. And so
Wow.
that's where I was. It was a really low point. But she really helped me to see that I was enough. Being who I am is enough. There's nothing wrong with me. And she helped me work through like these negative thoughts and labels that I was putting on myself. And so, yeah, it was a journey, day by day, moment by moment sometimes. But now 15 years later, it's like every day I started prioritizing things that made me feel good. I didn't put the energy into work or other people. I started investing it into myself.
Yeah.
And so today, um, yeah, in between meetings, I'll go outside for a walk. I'll make sure that I'm exercising and moving my body every day. I love to journal. Um, you know, there's so many things that I do to fill my cup up with peace, with love, with positive energy through my habits, through my spiritual connection. Because we're human, we're mind, body, spirit. We're meant to do more than just work. But I think society kind of grooms us early on, through school that, hey, this is the system, this is what you do, this is how you can be somebody, this is how you can change your circumstances. And we get caught up in that trap. And I certainly did, at least. I got caught up in that. But being an entrepreneur for, a decade and a half and really learning that work-life balance has made such a difference for me, prioritizing a positive mindset, taking actions that help fill me up. It made such a difference.
Mm, yeah. Wow. And I know so many listeners can relate to, having felt it's just so much heaviness from life, and it's like once you kind of understand that like this is part of the process, it, it, if you're going through hell, keep going, sort of thing. Like this is like very necessary for um, the acorn to be buried deep in the ground before it can, you know, it needs that as fuel for what it's to become. And I think
Mm,
that's one of the most important pieces. If you're judging the process, or if the caterpillar's judging the process of being melted into goo, if you're looking at it from that snapshot moment, you don't get to see the butterfly that it becomes, And I think we're all doing that dance in our own unique ways. And if you're not, you're there's people listening, I'm sure, that are in the process or somewhere in between where you were then, where I've been, and we circle back to at times. I find, I mean, only recently I've had more energetic struggles than I've had in a very long time. But I'm aware of like, okay, it doesn't mean I'm not feeling it. It doesn't mean it's not intense. Uh, but I'm aware that like this is part of a bigger process. And so
Mm,
though I even and you have those moments of negativity and doubt, and and then with this such a key part of my operating system, I can't stay there too long. And I think that's really the thing that's the most important, I found, is being able to um, you know install, let's say, software in my system that inevitably helps me to course correct and bring it back, and
mm.
you know and yeah, just get back in alignment. And I think the things that you're talking about are really, really key. So yeah, I think it's just very, very crucial to be able um to set that foundation for yourself, so that when you are going through it, you can find your way back, and you can
Mm.
find, you don't linger there any longer than you have to. And I think that's where, people really get stuck, is then it
Yeah.
becomes like, okay, this is who I am, this is where I am, these clouds of emotion that are passing by, this, I'm identifying that as me, as opposed to, you know a part of my process. And
Mm.
I think creating that separation, Power of Now, for example, talks about that, if I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that piece of like separating yourself from the negative emotion.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about, Brandon, are you into quantum physics? Like how
Oh
they
yeah.
talk about, yeah, like as I figured. So when I am going through a challenge, I often think about like, well, you're trying to get to that next level of yourself. And so it's like, as waves move, there's like that chaotic vibration until it straightens out. And
Yep.
then a chaotic vibration and straightens out. And so anytime that chaos comes, I always remind myself like, ooh, we're actually going through this. There's this up level that's happening within. And so you're going to have this exterior like chaos because it's the vibration moving, because it does that all the time. And I always just think of it in that
Mm,
way.
yeah, I
And
love
so
that.
when I am experiencing negativity, I like to think of it like, okay, what is this trying to mirror me? Like if it's another person, or if it's in my environment, like what is this mirroring within? And what is this trying to say? What is there, not necessarily like this is a blame game, because I don't see it like that, but it's like an empowering way of taking ownership of something within you that needs to change or grow.
Yeah.
And so I used to do the blame game, the victim, like, okay, this is my fault. And I used to take that on all the time, but that's the negative way to look at it. It's like, how can I own this? What kind of boundary do I need to set? Um, or is this just not serving me? Is this just not an experience that I enjoy anymore? Or, whatever
Hmm.
needs to change. We're all different. We have different experiences. But when we have that internal conversation and we're just the observer, we don't judge. We're just kind of like, okay, that's interesting. All right, I
Hmm.
see that. That's when you can kind of lessen the blow, I feel like,
Yeah.
along with, hey, I'm going through this. I need to take an extra long walk today, or a
Yeah.
long bath, or whatever
Yeah.
kind of self care really fills you up. We're all different. For me, like I can get lost in the woods. It's like
Yeah.
fresh air, nature feels so good. And like there's such a deep connection there that whatever I'm going through, it usually resolves, or I get some kind of awareness or thought that helps me work through that. Or I literally just clear my head, whatever
Yeah.
happens, it's all
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have been slower to adopt, and even this morning I did a little, before this I did a morning routine, little energy clearing ritual with my partner. And she's really good about, every morning her routine, for however long. And a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I'm too busy for that kind of thing, I've got stuff to do, you know things to take care of, go 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 go. I can tend to be that way. And so I'm really, even part of this very morning for me was like, okay, I'm committing more to being more mindful and slowing down. And it's something that I've really had to work at, because I think for some people it comes more naturally based off of the way you're wired, and so it's really been one for me. And even part of my conversation this morning was like how important this is for me to tune into my body and learn to, you know, just be with the emotions. And, I haven't done a lot of journaling. I know for a lot of people, that's like a huge way to get it out and move the energy, whatever it looks like for you, but
Hmm.
just some kind of practice. And there's no right practice. It's got to be this way or that way. Figure out what feels good to you. And that's, creating that time for yourself.
Mm.
It's like, I always love, Osho had a quote I saw years ago that I thought was great. He's like, everyone should meditate at least 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, you should meditate for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just
No,
like,
it's
it
so good.
says it
You're
all.
right.
It's like you
Yeah.
learning to create the energetics, because it is the field, it is quantum physics, it is all the, you go into those states and you're like, oh wow, I've shifted something, I've done something
Mm.
here, and I've I've created the right circumstances for that acorn to start growing and sprouting through the soil. It's got the right things it needs, the equivalent of water and sunlight, etc. And if it's never getting that, then it's going to atrophy, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so true. Yeah, I was a person that wasn't disciplined with morning and evening routines, but as soon as I began to get more consistent with it, I
Mm-hmm.
just saw the positive benefit. Because before I'd be like, yeah, I'm too busy for that, or, I have
Yep.
this and that to do. But even now, as a mom with two kids, it's like, no, this is essential because this is like my time. And whatever that looks like, if that's for me, sometimes it's exercising and reading, or it's journaling if I need to get emotions out. Um, Sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's going to the gym, sometimes it's a long walk. And I think when you're intuitive and you can truly dial in and see what feels right, whatever it is, just making that time morning and evening so that you can start your day in a more positive way, but then you want to end it in like a restful way so that you can truly absorb and get that deep sleep, because that's also so essential to our energy and our mindset and our mood. If I
Yeah.
don't get enough deep sleep, I can just feel that in my, have more mental fog, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I'm someone who sleeps really, really well. And I've had within the last week some, like I said, I've been dealing with some turbulence, energetic turbulence, and the difference any where it's disrupted my sleep some. And it's so palpably different, you know, my how I feel and it can function and my emotional bandwidth. And it's yeah, it's really, luckily I'm at the point where it's like I can see these things coming. And like I said, now when I experience, let's call it more of the depths of the negative side of the spectrum, if that's coming up in any way, another thing to just add to everything we've been talking about is, what if you bring acceptance and love to it? You
Mm,
just say, oh, okay, this is happening, I'm feeling this, I'm awake right now and I normally sleep. And instead of the resistance to it, just like, I thank you, I love you, I'm here to get the message, I'm here to move the energy, you know and I think that right there, what we resist persists, right? And
mm,
so and what we accept and allow and bring love to, even the thing that we don't desire, that allows that frees it. And I think that's a
mm.
that's a really key point, and it's almost like counterintuitive in a way, but once you get it and experience it, uh, the actions speak for themselves, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I love that. You're so right, because it's knowing that whatever it's bringing up, it's going to help evolve you, or change the situation, even if it doesn't feel like it at the moment,
Yeah,
right?
right, right.
And that's always key, because at the moment it usually doesn't feel good. And then later you look back and you're like, oh, yeah, because if I wouldn't have went through that, I wouldn't be doing
Yep,
this.
yep,
Okay, great.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it's that whole "why is this happening for me" question
Mm-hmm.
to pose. And like that lens alone changes everything. If that becomes like your primary, I wouldn't have chosen this, but it's happening, and I trust. In my book, one of the keys I wrote, the keys I break down in my book, The Golden Key, is trust the mystery.
Mm.
Like My higher self is playing chess. I'm playing checkers. I think I know. I only know this much of what formula is necessary for me to become my greatest and grandest self. And so,
Oh, I like that. My
yeah,
higher self is playing chess and I'm playing checkers. I can
yeah,
feel like that
right,
sometimes.
right. And so once you
And that's
get
being
that,
very
it's
humble,
like
right? Because it's so true. You're definitely playing checkers in a
you
game of chess.
you're playing with this much information. Your
So
higher
true.
self is, and I believe that's really what's happening with it. We're doing a dance,
Hmm.
with our higher self to create the best outcome for our avatar. It's like, and it's if you're constantly trying to take the wheel as if you're in charge, you can do that. But they say even intuition is the highest form of intelligence because it's tapping
Yeah.
into data points that you beyond the mental, beyond comprehension. My partner Karen said to me recently, that is really important to. She was talking about how I think she's looking at my North Node actually and studying astrology, and she does these cards of destiny readings, which are phenomenal. Very few people know about them. And so she was wanting to kind of subsidize that information with astrology, and she was looking at my North Node, Sagittarius, and she's like, for you, your whole aim as a North Node Sagittarius is to get out of using your mind to figure things out,
Mm.
uh, logic everything. Instead, use it as to understand what your higher self has kind of put before you and how to navigate and follow that intuition that you're feeling.
So use it. So yeah. So you said get out of your mind and use it for. So talk a bit
So
more
yeah,
about
let me
that.
make sure
Yeah,
I
the
get this.
difference.
I'm saying this
Because
as
getting out of
greatly
your
as
mind,
well as she
because
put it.
I've been told that too. But get out of your mind, and do you mean like feel
Learning
it
it,
or get in your heart or
problem
where?
solve with your brain
Mm-hmm.
to achieve the thing that your intuition is
Okay.
guiding you to.
Okay.
So the
Yes.
intuition is the guide,
The feeling. Yeah.
yeah, and the brain is the mind is to figure out how to integrate and do that thing, not
Yes. Yes.
what direction do I need to go logically? What's the path
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take care of the thing? What is let me tap into my heart, mind. Let me take that personal time to
Yes.
really feel what where am I subtly being drawn? What feels like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm a moth, that's the light. Okay. And I don't need to know why even that direction. I'll
Mm.
use my logic now how to deal with following that and
Mm.
integrating and implementing. And for me, that really landed. I mean, I know it applies to everybody,
Yeah.
and it's just like, wow, quit trying to figure it out from the checker mind. Let's
Mm-hmm.
tap into the chess move and then use this really good at details and execution. Let's use that in
It's
in
so
in,
good
in
because
concert that way.
yeah, it's so good because often we'll get an opportunity and our brain says it's good, but our intuition's like, mm-mm.
Yep.
And when you act on it later, you always look back and it's like,
Always.
I knew that, but,
Always.
or you couldn't quite figure out what it was about it, but you did it anyway. Or there's times when you're like, for me, like speaking for myself, like, okay, I'll say, no, I know logically that sounds like the best
Yep.
approach or I should say yes, but intuitively no. And I'll say no, but later I'll find out like something and I'll say, oh, and as you begin to trust that and keep going with that no or that yes intuitively, life gets a lot easier and more fulfilling because you're really going on your path, but not like the path that everybody else is saying or that logically your brain would think is the best route. And so that's so good because connecting and routing as you for your intuition as your true north is really the
Yep.
best guidance system.
Yeah, it's particularly challenging for someone who's got a lot of mental activity and who's the smarter you are, maybe the harder it is to shut up
Mm.
and allow the subtle energy of the intuition. And
Hmm.
this is where walking in nature or journaling in the morning or just creating that space to do breath work, whatever it looks like for
Yeah.
you, to allow it this graceful, more gentle energy to come in. And then you're like, you're able to read the subtleties more. And then
Hmm.
you're reading the subtleties and then you get better at this dynamic of allowing it to be the guide, and then your mind to learn how to integrate and take those steps, and act on the guidance. And and then of course, like you said, the more you do that, the more you train yourself, and then the stronger the connection becomes with the intuition.
Yeah,
And that's where you get
that's
like
so
a lot of
true.
psychic, intuitive, like it gets more and more, it can get really strong. But it's like any muscle, in a sense, it needs to be given some attention and love and worked out to some degree. And I think creating that space, it's like the more space you create for that, it's almost counterintuitive. Like, I need to work 18 hours a day to achieve the thing. Well, maybe that 1 hour or 30 minutes or 15 minutes of creating sacred space and time for yourself to foster that very important connection is the equivalent of a week's worth of work. Because
Exactly.
it can save you
Because you're in the
like how much,
flow. Yeah.
yeah, how much time and energy have you wasted following the wrong leader,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, and normally the outside world, like at first, sometimes will be like, "Oh, that's not a good idea," or even with starting Power Positivity, um, it was when Facebook first started pages, and people were like, "Power of positivity, is that a
Mm-hmm.
word?" Or "That's really hard to say. I don't think anyone's gonna like that." And I'm like, "Well, it feels good to me, so I'm gonna do it. Like I'm gonna go
Mm-hmm.
for it." And you're gonna get that kind of stuff from people, and you have to ignore it. Like, in fact, you have to build that muscle of like, I trust myself and what I'm doing. Because I even see in the world, like there's some, to me, horrible business names, but they are thriving, right?
Yeah,
Because it's their path and they believe in it and it's working for them. So it's truly
right.
like what you believe that works the best for you, you
Yeah.
know?
And what's most authentic to
Hmm.
you. I don't know if you
Yes.
saw anything about this study. um it was like MIT and some other place in Europe, or I saw this guy talking, a couple people talking about it, and they tried to measure. They claimed to be able to measure different emotions and energies,
Mm.
to with some sort of technique, and to gauge the power, right? And they were like surprised to see the most powerful emotion was not love. It was or energy. It was authenticity. It was like
Wow.
4 times more powerful or something with their measurements. Like, so the
Mm.
most powerful thing you can do, if we're energetic beings, which we know we are, quantum physics has shown us that, right? And we're vibrations of energy. That's why vibes are real. That's what you are. That's the atoms, the particles that make you up. They're just vibrations of energy popping in and out of existence that aren't solid in any way. They just appear solid, and they're 99.999% space. And
Yeah.
these vibrations that are popping in and out of existence so quickly, like a movie screen flickering, they have resonance. They have power. Like, they have electricity. They're pure energy. And if they're tuned to your authentic, you know, your true north, you're the most powerful you can possibly be and have the most impact. So if you're showing up in your most authentic self, and then
Mm.
it's kind of like being next to a heat lamp, that's really tiny versus a really big one. Like,
I
you're
love
gonna
that.
feel it
Yeah.
way more. And so what is my authentic path? Because that's what's going to impact, not them telling me what it should be, because we're so uniquely different anyway. Like, there is
Hmm.
no other me. We're all the exact same in our uniqueness.
Yeah. Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
it's interesting to realize that, and to learn how to just tap into our authenticity is like,
Mm.
that's why being truthful, it's so important. If you're being inauthentic, you're weak. Your
Yeah.
vibe, they don't even know why they don't like it or like you. They don't. It's happening at a level you can't possibly win with the smaller, you know taser.
Yeah, and it's kind of even like relationships. Like if you're not being yourself, then you're going to attract people that you're being like, but not being yourself. And then you're going to feel lonely, even in a room full of people, because you didn't really attract the right people because you weren't being yourself. So it's like no matter who you are, and that person can change through the years as you get to know yourself and choose and change your preferences. But it's like be yourself so that you can attract the right people and then actually thrive in wherever you are and whoever you're with, because that's really the only way. So many people are lonely, but they're with people, and and it's interesting because it's authenticity truly is like the gateway to freedom if we're ready to embrace it, and even a positive life.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. It's really cool to see the science now backing that. Right.
Yeah.
It's not just like some woo woo idea. It's like, well, no, this is the science is showing it. And so yeah, I think more and more people are understanding that. And even though there's a lot of disruption on our planet, the more people that understand, like, oh, being authentic, being true, what I'm putting out is going to come back. That's I think that's happening, in
Mm.
the mix of the disruption. We're in our caterpillar stage, in a sense of the planet melting down into a goo like the caterpillar cells do. But that destruction, that is what feeds the butterfly, the imaginal cells, to give birth to the butterfly. So
Mm.
that's where we're at. And so I think especially as times, I don't know what we're going to see happen in the times ahead, but I know I will show up with the most bright outlook that I possibly can, and like
Hmm.
look for the silver lining. It's like, I think that's so important. So many people I think are scared out there now,
Yeah.
and it's like just trusting this process.
Yeah.
It's, I think, going to be the true anchor for many of us.
And I think as you're talking, it's like it's reminding me this journey is embracing change. You have to,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of change actually. In the last 15 years, I've had so much change, to the fact of I even moved states away to be somewhere that I really love. Like I'm here I'm surrounded by forest. You have to create the environment that you are meant to thrive in, whatever that
Yep.
looks like. If you need to live by the beach, go move to the beach.
Yep.
And it's interesting when you decide to embrace that part of yourself and with courage and go for it, everything seems to work out, even when you're like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but
Yep.
I just have to trust, and you know, the bridge will be revealed over time. And,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of change with that. You get to know yourself, and when you discover something, if a change is needed, go for it. You have to take that risk and create that world that's unique to you, because yeah, life is short and the world is, we don't know
Yeah.
what's to come, and so we just have to live for today and enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Right. The journey is the goal, indeed.
Mhm.
Well, I love to always ask Kristen stories of um, synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. Um, just any kind of inspiring story time. And I'm curious if you have something fun up your sleeve to share.
Hmm. You know, I do love synchronicities and manifesting. So it's like, as I said, I grew up in poverty and I always wanted to change my circumstances. And so I'm a big dreamer. I'm always like thinking up the next thing that I want to do or
Mm-hmm.
create, or
Mm-hmm.
be. And so yeah, what's coming to mind is um yeah, I made a vision board last year, and I had this beach house. So I don't live at the beach. I live in the mountains, but it would be cool to one day have, a rental property or something at the beach. I'm dreaming. I'm in the dream stage
Sure.
right now,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I put this house that I printed, I think from like Trolley or something online, in Florida. And so last year I had it on my vision board. And yeah, I have seen like The Secret, where like John Assaraf says this, right? But I never
Yeah.
thought like it would
Yeah. I had
happen
him
to
on the
me.
show and he shared that story.
Oh my gosh, really? So
Yeah.
so my story is not exactly like his, but there's pieces that I'm getting there. So I put it on my vision board, and um last year I had a second book launch, and I didn't want to burn out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a lot in 1 year." So what I'm going to do is go to the beach during my book launch, because this way I can kind of rest and recoup and balance during a time when, there's a lot more work demand. And so long story short, we were going to book something, and a friend mentioned this area, Santa Rosa Beach, like the Destin, Florida area. And I'm like, okay, great. That's going to be really hot. That's what I need. It was like the beginning of June. And so we find a house, and I go to tell my husband, okay, here's the area that I found, and I got this Airbnb. And he was like, oh, great. I've never been to that area. So we just go to Google, and I type in Destin, Florida, and the house came up that I had printed like the year before from like
Wow.
Trulia. I printed it from Trulia. I didn't print it from Google.
Yeah.
And it's not like I stayed in that house or anything, but what I actually did was when we were down there, it was only 15 minutes from where I got
Mm,
the Airbnb.
cool.
So we walked along the beach till I got to the house, and I like took all these pictures in front of this house. And it really like made my entire book launch week, even though, I didn't stay at that house or anything like that. But to me, it's showing me that, hey, you want to have property at the beach one day. This is a sign that, hey, one day you're going to get there, because it was the exact house that I had printed from
Yeah.
Trulia. Um,
Wow.
and so it was like I was getting to know that area. It's like I was being guided to kind of, do I like this area? Oh, I love this area. The beaches are so clear and amazing. It feels like I'm in the Bahamas. And so I got to like scope out the area without even realizing it was the area that was on my vision board. And so,
Wow.
even though
Cool.
I'm not there or anything, and it's not like this extravagant story, I think if when we look for these little signs and see
Yeah.
that it's telling us, hey, you're on the right path. This
Yeah.
is coming. I don't know when it's going to come or how it's
Yep.
going to come, but it's just these little things like, yeah, this is going to happen like eventually. And who knows, maybe in a couple years I'll be talking to you and be like, yeah, I got that house, right? Or something. You
It's
never
funny
know.
that you say that because I live in Venice Beach, and I really want a place in the mountains.
Oh, yeah, right?
And
You got to have
you're in
both
Asheville,
nature.
North Carolina, where my mother's best friend since childhood.
Mm,
They have land, a bunch of land in Asheville, and I was talking to my mother a while back about it. I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll buy the land, work something out with them so I can get on
yeah,
this land. It's and I guess there's an old house there, no one's on it. It's lots of land.
yeah.
So it's funny because we're like yin
We're
yang. How
switching.
about
Yeah.
yeah? How about this? We'll just swap spots from time to time. You can come hold down the Mystic Manor, and
Yeah.
I'll go
Yeah.
to the sanctuary of Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. You got to have that balance. It feels good though to like get to the beach and have the salty air and experience that
Yeah.
part of nature, but then in the mountains, it's just a whole new vibe. And yeah, you
Hmm.
never know, you might have rental property or
Yeah, for
something.
sure. I love the coziness of the mountains and like
Mhm.
um yeah. Do you guys get much snow in Asheville? I don't recall.
Um, you know, Sometimes, but we haven't for a few years. And when you
Not
do,
a ton.
though, it
Yeah.
might be, a foot, and then it'll melt in a day or two.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really mild. It's like it gives you that nice snow day or
Yeah.
two a winter. So this past two winters, we didn't really have any, just enough that dusted the ground. But my
Yeah.
kids were like,
What is
like
this? Yeah.
they still were like sledding in it. They still like
Yeah.
were out there all day to the
Yeah.
fullest, like until
Oh.
like they were trying to sled the grass. It just kept melting, right?
Oh.
But I mean, it's nice to have that balance of a little bit of snow. And most of the time it's pretty warm though, and it's always sunny. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Not California sunny, but
Yeah.
it's its version of
Yeah. It's pretty
sunny.
similar. I grew up in Virginia, and it's pretty similar. I was just
Yeah.
wondering at the higher elevation if you might get more, but, um, well, yeah. As we kind of wind down here, eh, all the listeners, obviously I always say, results speak the loudest, and you've certainly come a long way in your own journey, uh, harnessing the power of positivity and really walking the talk. And so I'm curious, what message would you have for the person out there who, would love to follow in your shoes in their own unique way, and maybe they're on that front end of your where you were, what did you say, 15 years ago or
Mm,
whatever, you know, um, 20 years ago. What would you say to that person now?
mm. Believe in yourself, know that you're worthy of more,
Mm,
and just take little action steps every day that fill your cup, no matter
Mm,
how busy you are, whatever is going to help fill your cup, just move your body in some way that feels good, you know, eat foods that fuel you because that's so important.
yeah.
Really investing in your mind and your body, knowing that it's going to create positive change and it's going to open doors. Because anytime we invest in ourselves, it might feel like it's selfish, but we're recharging our phones every day. We got to recharge ourselves, and it's not selfish. It's necessary so that we can help other people. And
Yeah.
if I would have known that back then, because I did really have the limiting belief that self care was selfish, that I shouldn't prioritize myself in any way. I should just prioritize
Hmm.
everybody else. And so it's just a limiting belief. And the amazing thing is, you can change any belief system. And I've changed hundreds of belief systems, and I'm still changing belief systems because every
Me
time
too.
you find one and you fix it, you find another. But that's
Yeah.
life. And knowing that you can change things is so empowering. But then
Yeah.
taking that action every day to make sure that you are in some way is how
Mm,
you move the needle, because you can think about it in
yep.
your head all day long, and it's not going to change anything because you have to take that action to receive along with the thoughts.
Yeah. The little steps turn into to the big strides ultimately
Hmm.
over time. And it's just like that little bit of movement
Yeah.
shifts things
Just little
energetically.
ones every
Do
day.
something different
Yeah. Doesn't have
today
to
than
be
you did
these big
yesterday.
leaps. Yeah.
Yeah. 5 minutes of something that's, a walk in the park. I mean, just
Hmm.
something that disrupts, you know, Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this and the physics and energy behind it. If you want to go,
Mm.
breaking the habit of being yourself,
Yeah.
his book, check that out. If, you need to really understand the science of this, what it
Mm.
does energetically. And, yeah, I think that's a very good, insight and wisdom. And you said, um, you are worthy. And I often, it's funny when I'm asked that similar. I'm on a lot of other podcasts too, and when I'm asked that similar question at the end, what final thought do you have? I always kind of go to the same thing. It's like you are as worthy as any other being ever has been, could be, or will be, because
Mm.
every being is an extension of self. There's only one of us. The consciousness that
Hmm.
animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form. So if anyone's worthy, you're worthy, and if
Hmm.
you've had evidence to the contrary in some way, you've had a hard time, you've been quote unquote negative, whatever the story, that's just fertilizer for you to grow into,
Mm.
the version of yourself that you're meant to become. And if it's been really challenging, congratulations. What a bold, bright soul. I was watching Near Death Experiencer talk about this. I love watching those sorts of videos, and they're saying how they got to see that they chose everything, and they're like, wow, I'm going to do this life adventure, what a novel concept. And they're kind of like the vision they were shown, while their bodies, in the ICU or whatever, and they're having a out of
Wow.
body near death experience, is they're pushing a golf cart, shopping cart through the grocery store, and they're just taking things off the shelf with like boxes of cereal with like despair, heartache, whatever, and like, oh, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. And, I want to have all these emotions, energies, and experiences to give my soul the full gamut,
Mm.
of understanding what it means to be a human, and I become more from having experienced that. And so, it's the only thing I've ever been good at is telling good stories about myself. Any positive anything that's ever come from me, it's just come from me making up a story. And it makes sense. It's like we are the creator and created rolled into one. You are one with
Mm.
source. You are an extension of source. Like, what does the source do? What does the creator do? It creates, and it starts with that story that you're telling, and that becomes the most important thing is telling good stories and managing your vibration, right?
Yeah.
That's
To
your job.
create, though, takes so much courage, but once you can step into that, it's so fun, but
Yeah.
it just takes knowing you're worthy and knowing that you can and knowing that you're
Yeah.
privileged to be able to do it. And then
Yeah.
once you start doing it, you're like, this is really fun. What can I do? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to see
Right.
what I can create, and it's not perfect, but this is our experience and we have to make the best of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been an experience that I feel I've made the best of. I have so enjoyed having the opportunity to reconnect with you again, and it feels like a full circle power of positivity squared, positive head upgrade. So thank you for taking the time to come on. And if you would tell people best way to find you, connect, with you, your work, etc.
Yeah, I love Instagram. So my handle is at positive Kristen, or my brand Power of Positivity. It's at Power of Positivity. And even our websites, it's the same, powerofpositivity.com and positivekristen.com.
Cool. Amazing. Well, I do have one final question for you, my cliche closer, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Kristen Butler?
Mm. The meaning of life is growth and expansion, and we're here to create and to feel the fullness of life and to expand the universe in knowledge and through our actions. And so, yeah, just yeah, hang on and enjoy the ride, because it's what we're meant to do when we are stuck or feel like we're bogged down with negativity and problems. We're not growing, we're not expanding. That's why we're feeling that resistance. And so, if we can just flow with the process and continue to grow, that is the true meaning of why we're here and the
Mm-hmm.
essence of life. Everything grows in nature. You see it. So, we need to
Mm-hmm.
grow and we need to embrace that.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Uh, Thank you for taking the time, Kristen, coming on today and sharing your wisdom and all the work that you do in the world. You are such a beautiful reflection. And all of you out there, thank you for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts to another episode. Until next time, journey well.